Today I will be looking into the economic patterns of obesity in relation to sugar consumption in the United States. Obesity is a rising epidemic that impacts countries of all economic levels. Obesity and overweight are both labels for ranges of weight that are greater than what is generally considered healthy given one's height. Body mass index is a method used to determine a person's weight status. Those with a BMI between 25 and 29.9 is considered overweight, while those with a BMI of 30 or higher is considered obese. Obesity is not only affecting adults but children as well. When a person becomes overweight or obese as a child, they are more likely to remain overweight or obese into adulthood, and this can lead to an increased risk of disease and disability. This first graph shows the obesity trends of adults in the United States. From 1960 to 1980, the percent of the population that is overweight, those with a BMI of 25 or higher, and healthy adults is approximately equal, around 45% of the population each. However, things are seen to change in the late 80s and early 90s, where the overweight population gradually increases over time and the healthy population consequently decreases. Obesity trends, those with a BMI of 30 or higher, also increased during this time period as well. By 2008, the majority of the population is seen to be overweight and obese, with a small percent of the population maintaining a healthy weight. In children, similar trends are seen for obesity. By the late 80s, obesity appears in children as young as 2 to 5 years old, and the rate of obesity rises 2% each decade to a high of 12% by 2004. Rates of obesity in children 6 to 11 years old and 12 to 19 years old are seen in green and red. They also show staggering increases reaching just under 18% of the population in 2008. Therefore, it is not surprising to note that rates of obesity in both adults and children in the United States are some of the highest in the world. There are many health risks associated with obesity, especially in growing children, where it can have adverse effects on their hormones, puberty, and major organ systems. In addition, when children are overweight or obese at a young age, there can be significant emotional and social tolls as well. Body weight is directly associated with many cardiovascular risk factors. As BMI increases, so do blood pressure, blood sugar, triglycerides, and inflammation, which lead to increased risk for coronary heart disease and stroke. One of the most common conditions influenced by body weight is type 2 diabetes, in which your body loses the ability to maintain proper blood glucose levels due to the development of insulin resistance. According to the CDC, diabetes is also one of the most common chronic diseases in children in the United States today. Other health risks from obesity are cancer, hypertension, also known as high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, commonly known as high cholesterol, where there is an imbalance of fat circulating in your bloodstream. Sleep apnea, another risk factor of obesity, affects mood and quality of life. Due to these potential health risks, diet is especially important as it can help protect against or further facilitate these conditions due to how it influences your body's metabolic functions. There are many factors that contribute to the onset of obesity. Generally, when someone continuously has a positive energy balance resulting from a greater intake of calories than needed, the body will store the excess as body fat, and this leads to weight gain over time. Genetic factors increase the susceptibility that one has for gaining weight and interacts with other risk factors such as behavior and environment. The term obesogenic environment is now commonly used and refers to the role that the environment plays in promoting obesity. These include factors such as using cars and other modes of transportation, which decrease walking and physical activity. This can lead to weight gain. In addition, the Western diet promotes frequent, large, calorically dense meals that are high in refined grains, unhealthy fats, and sugary drinks. This increased caloric consumption paired with physical inactivity leads to weight gain, and one of the main targets in combating obesity is sugar, especially since many of those suffering from overweight and obesity also suffer from diabetes, as explained earlier. To look at the trends in sugar consumption in the United States, I resorted to data from the Economic Research Service at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This first figure in sugar shows the consumption of sugar per capita in the United States. One of the most dramatic changes is seen in the early 80s by the sharp decline of cane and beet sugar and corresponding rise of high fructose corn syrup consumption. This is commonly found in processed foods today. Cane and beet sugar are pure sucrose, a disaccharide containing equal parts of fructose and glucose. High fructose corn syrup is milled from corn, where additional processing occurs to convert some of the glucose into fructose to make the syrup sweeter. This liquid syrup is a better alternative to regular sucrose because it is stable in acidic foods and beverages, and thus is seen in the graph. High fructose corn syrup consumption is likely increased due to its addition to many processed foods commonly found in the Western diet. Added sugar means added calories. Recommendations from the American Heart Association suggest limiting daily added sugar consumption to 6 teaspoons for women and 9 teaspoons for men. This corresponds to 96 calories and 144 calories. This amount of calories is what you will find in a single 12-ounce can of soda, which contains approximately 10 teaspoons of added sugar. When adding up the daily amount of cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and other sweeteners, the amount of added sugar consumed daily is nearly double these recommendations, so it is safe to assume that people are not just consuming 1 can of soda per day. I have referenced previously that high fructose corn syrup is added to beverages and other processed foods. The top graph shows the industrial use of sugar for human consumption in individual foods. Sugar in beverages, seen in purple, reaches an all-time high until the mid-80s, where it is presumably replaced by high fructose corn syrup, as can be predicted by the previous graph on consumption and also shown in the table below from the U.S. Census Bureau, which looks at high fructose corn syrup consumption in industrial foods. This table shows significant increases in consumption of high fructose corn syrup in beverages beginning in the late 80s. Overall, both the graph and table show that sugar, both regular sucrose and high fructose corn syrup sweetener, is heavily used in large quantities in processed foods that are available to consumers here in the United States. Now that we have seen the high demand for sugar, one would predict that production and supply of sugar would also increase to meet the demand needs. As it turns out, the United States is one of the largest sugar producers. Sugar trends, as seen in this graph, are steadily rising over time as presumably more sugar is being added to processed food. Sugar production does appear to decline slightly when high fructose corn syrup production comes onto the scene. As mentioned previously, high fructose corn syrup is more stable for acidic foods and beverages, so its demands in industry are quite high, and therefore it is not surprising that production is generally higher for high fructose corn syrup than regular sugar. This last graph shows the wholesale price of sugar and sweeteners. Glucose syrup, shown in purple, was the primary corn sweetener used in the United States prior to the expanded use of high fructose corn syrup. The two different varieties of high fructose corn syrup are shown in dark blue and red. High fructose corn syrup 42 means that the ratio of sucrose molecule is 42% fructose and 53% glucose. This is commonly used in beverages, processed foods, cereals, and baked goods. High fructose corn syrup 55 is 55% fructose and 42% glucose and is mostly used in soft drinks. Dextrose, in light blue, is 3/4 as sweet as sucrose and is used in production of baked goods, candy, and frozen dairy products in the form of dextrose monohydrate. These alternatives to beet sugar are shown to be cheaper prior to 2014, which may be why they were so appealing to use in the varieties of foods found in the Western diet. Currently, the wholesale price of sugar and sweeteners appears to be equal, around 30 cents per pound. In summary, obesity in the United States is a complex disorder that is shown to be dramatically increasing in the last several decades. There are many factors that contribute to obesity, with the main issue stemming from excess calorie intake exceeding expenditure. The Western diet has a strong influence on foods readily available to the population, which are heavily laden with added sugar, particularly in beverages. Added sugar can quickly lead to excess calories and weight gain. Children are particularly at risk for weight gain during childhood, which is maintained into adulthood and can lead to many health risks. Consumers should be aware of the food that they consume and the ingredients that these products have in order to maintain a healthy, balanced diet.